And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be having a look at and having a discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some snippets from the news. And of course, this is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prep University on YouTube, podcasting, broadcasting out of Atlanta or the Atlanta area Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live portion, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta directly Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise specified, as we get ready to dive into what's going on in the world today. And of course, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is plausible. And if you hear something banging and jingling, it's one of the cats like right under me here playing with a ball. I do try to read through as many of the comments as I can, and I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people who have chosen to chime in thus far on the live portion. I see Helter is here, Dragon is here, Boogers is here, Rodney's here in New Zealand, who made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Rodney. Much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Always helps. Every little bit helps. Fluke Man is here. Brian is here. Velvet Pilot has, good Lord. There she is. I don't know if you can, there we go. See her? Little girl under there with her ball with a little bell in it, making all that noise and rattling and distracting things. But that's okay. That's okay. Cats have an extra privilege that I'll tolerate as we get ready to dive in to what is going on in the world today. And we'll start getting ready to dig into some of these articles and see what is going on. Oh, and by the way, before I get started with all of that, something has changed on ScrewTube. Something has changed on ScrewTube, and I'm going to see if I can share an image here with you to show you what they've done. Oh my goodness, what have they done? Well, here it comes. Let's see if I can pull this image up here for you. Cruising says, back after a week of being unplugged for a sanitary check. Vacation, huh? Yeah, well, you work for the Department of Education. I don't blame you for needing to unplug for anything. Kitty, what did you do with the ball? Here you go. Go get it. Anyway, here we go. This is what has changed. This is something new that when you post a video, you get a challenge question that you have to answer. It says, altered content. Do any of the following describe your content? Well, let's see. Makes a real person appear to say or do something they didn't say or do. Alters footage of a real event or place. Generates a realistic looking scene that didn't actually occur. So what they want to know, obviously, is whether or not we are demonstrating AI generated content. It goes on to say yes or no. You have to pick one. And then in the fine print, it says to follow YouTube's policy, you're required to tell us if your content is altered or synthetic and seems real. This includes realistic sounds or visuals made with AI or other tools. Selecting yes adds a label to your content. Click here to learn more. I don't want to learn more. I don't trust you. This is new. This is what they're doing now. Oh, and Legends is here. Glad you could make it today, Legends. So another way to police your content, courtesy of ScrewTube, and that's what Rodney says. Yep, more censorship by YT. And Legend says you literally play the footage as is. Yes, I do. I play it exactly as it is. If it's been altered, it's been altered by somebody else, and I don't know anything about it. I would be more concerned with official media agencies altering anything than anybody on YouTube. If people did do something and they did like a deep fake video, like there's a guy who does Obama impersonations, I think, and so on, they tell you anyways, hey, this is what we're doing, or it's obvious humor. But, the powers that be think we're all 5 years old and that they need to hold our hands and cover our eyes and ears when they think we might see or hear something that they think we might be offended by, because we're too stupid and immature to know the difference. And granted, most people are not that smart, but I think they know when something is humor and something is fake most of the time. Puck says you should let AI do a max headroom version of you for these videos. Well, then I would have to click yes. And I already get in enough trouble with ScrewTube. I get a strike every day. You already know. And New World is here. Glad you could make it today. But yeah, this is the latest thing that ScrewTube is doing to police your content. Police your content, having you certify that you're not using AI generated content, as if their algorithm couldn't pick it out anyways, as if they wouldn't be able to tell. Who knows? Maybe they can't. Maybe they can't. Maybe it's gotten that good that their system, their algorithm can no longer tell the difference. Or more to the point, maybe they just want another opportunity to try to weaponize something against your platform if they don't like you, if they don't like you very much. Anyways, I'm sure many of you have seen this by now. Our vice president, who absolutely couldn't have been a diversity hire. No, say it isn't so. Making an ass of herself again. I'm pretty sure most people have seen this by now because it's so blatantly obvious. And this particular article is from The Independent. Kamala Harris unknowingly claps along to Spanish song protesting against her on visit to Puerto Rico. So you gotta love it. Lady, don't get involved until you know what's going on, basically. But yeah, made a fool of herself, and there is a video clip, and I'll play it for you here in a moment. Let me pause that so that I can control it better. I'm trying to pause it. It won't let me. Damn thing. Come on. I can't. Anyways, I'll read the article. It says Kamala Harris unknowingly smiled and clapped along to a Spanish song protesting against her. The U.S. Vice President was visiting the Guayoco Community Center in Puerto Rico, where she was greeted by a protester singing in Spanish. Not understanding the lyrics, Ms. Harris was seen smiling and clapping along. However, one of her aides quickly informed her that the man was actually protesting against her. We want to know, quote, Kamala, what did you come here for? We want to know. The vice president is here making history. We want to know what she thinks of the colony, a man saying. The Independent is the world's most free-thinking news brand providing. Is this part of no, that's not part of the article. I don't want to hear that. It's not part of the article. I don't want to hear it. So let me pause this. Now I can pause it, and I can play the video clip if anybody even wants to see it, if it'll hold still long enough for me to grab it. That is aggravating how this stuff bounces around. I don't remember the internet being this wonky before they forced ads into everything. Here it is. So she's clapping and smiling and looking goofy. Then the assistant translates it and tells her, nah, you better stop that because they're picking on you. And then she nods in understanding, and yeah. Nice going, Kamala. Nice going. And that's not anything that's all that important, but it's just something else that makes her look goofy, which she does not need in her career because she already looks embarrassing to pretty much everybody. She already looks embarrassing. So to do that without realizing what's going on, because she will do that. She will do that. She will appear to be childish or goofy and giddy and giggly and whatever wherever she goes without discerning the situation first. And this is just a reflection of that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. She should be embarrassed. And Unknown says Kamala has access to free language instruction and didn't bother to learn a little Spanish. She's more lazy than I am. Okay. And Puck says, what's going on with the panic about the solar eclipse on April 8th? Are we doomed? Yeah, right. I ought to do a denouncement video about that. Solar eclipse, and there's some comment somewhere, and who gives a damn? How many solar and lunar eclipses occur annually? You know, and it tracks in different places at different times, but there's been solar and lunar eclipses forever. Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened. There's a panic because they want you to panic. And if anything does happen, it's probably going to be artificially created. And Nature Nerd says Puerto Rico should be a state. 5 million people have no representation and cannot vote. Shouldn't that be an important issue to address? And I bet it's more conservative than people think. They have to vote for it. They won't. They refuse. The same thing with the Samoan Islands and all the other U.S. territories. They have to vote for the statehood and have never done it. They've never petitioned for it. So it's not going to happen unless they call for it and the people vote on it and accept it. That's how it's supposed to go anyways. So that it sounds like, why aren't they a state? Sure, that makes sense, but they often avoid it because it keeps them free from certain taxes as well. Without getting too far into that, but on the same token, it also makes them vulnerable. If you recall, and you can look this up for yourself, the original birth control pill trials took place in Puerto Rico before the drug companies rolled it out onto the market, but they didn't know they were taking birth control pills. They didn't know what was being done to them. So that opens the door for that kind of crap from the federal government as well. Helter says it could be that she was clapping along like a moron on purpose. Yeah, plausible deniability. Brian says she's already embarrassed herself in the picture with her and Biden wearing masks when they so-called won the election. And Dragon says if Al Bundy was still on the air, he'd probably call Kamala Harris a chicken. Oh, yeah. Legend said, curious, who do you think is running against Joe Biden later this year? I don't know. Besides Trump? And Kennedy still has his hat in the ring, right? He thinks he does. And Kami Thong says, no one cared who I was until I put on the mask. As we move around here, we're going to jump from Puerto Rico to Boston. That's right, Boston, Massachusetts. Daily Mail article coming up. Boston, Massachusetts. The old stomping ground. Because, I grew up in the Boston area. Talking about, you guessed it, reparations. Here we go. And Raccoon has joined us today. Glad to make it, Raccoon. Daily Mail article, religious leaders in Boston demand that, quote, white churches give millions in reparations to black residents for owning slaves and want the city to pay $15 billion. I'm so sick of hearing the word reparations. I'll tell you what. My wife and I did another video on the subject. Actually, I haven't put it up yet. One of the few times you'll hear her go on a rant. I thought I was on a rant, man. She got upset. I like the idea of reparations at all. She thinks it's ridiculous. So, into the article. The activist clergy also called on them to, is this the beginning of the article or did I miss something? Okay, here we go. Religious leaders in Boston have demanded white churches give millions of dollars in reparations to the city's black community. The activist clergy also called on them to back a push for the city of Boston to pay $15 billion in reparations for its historical role in the slave trade. The event at Resurrection Lutheran Church was organized by the Boston People's Reparations Commission, which made the $15 billion demand. I want to make a $15 billion demand. Can I make a $15 billion demand? You know what? I'll give you a break. I'll make it a $15 million demand. I won't be nearly as greedy. Wisely, I'll be a good steward of the money. The event at Resurrection, one of the speakers was Reverend Kevin, who wants to rename Faneuil Hall Marketplace due to Peter Faneuil, the wealthy merchant who built it, being a prominent slave trafficker in the 1700s. We call sincerely, hold still. We call sincerely and with a heart filled with faith and Christian love for our white churches to join us and not be silent around the issue of racism and slavery and commit to reparations, he said. How about you just, you know what? How about in your church? How about in all these churches? How about in all of these churches? You just teach from the Bible. How about that? How about you leave all the political and social mumbo jumbo at the door and you open and study the Bible? Not take a sentence from the New Testament out of context and then blither on for an hour and then pass the plate again. How about you actually do some honest teaching from the Bible, churches? Any of you. I don't care what church it is. Look at these people. For those of you who can see. And what is this sash this guy is wearing? Can you tell me what this sash is? Is this like is this like Doctor Who? It looks like Tom Baker's second wave fourth Doctor, when he had like the sort of burgundy outfit instead of the traditional tweed scarf. What is that scarf supposed to represent? I don't understand it. I don't understand what's going on there. Reverend John Gibbons from Arlington Street Church also spoke at the event, saying churches were researching their history and discussing reparations, but that wasn't enough. It's not, huh? Somehow we need to move with some urgency towards action, and so part of what we're doing is to prod and encourage white churches to go beyond what they have done thus far, he said. Is that him? That's Reverend Kevin Peterson right there in this image, if you can see. Reverend Kevin Peterson. King's Chapel published research that found 219 slaves were owned by ministers and church members in hundreds of years of its history. Were they owned by the ministers or by the church? So who are you angry with? Are you angry with the church because someone who worked for it may or may not have owned a slave? That's like I worked for Family Dollar and I did something to a customer and they want to do Family Dollar instead of coming after me. South Church also published a report on its historical ties to slavery, and its minister, Reverend John Edgerton, is on board with the group's effect. Old South Church is committed to learning the truth about our history and making repair. The God who loves justice demands nothing less, he told the Boston Globe. Yeah, do you actually understand God's justice and what that means? Do you? Do you know that? I question when people who are supposed to represent um, the Christian religion talk about justice without a clear understanding of what biblical justice actually is. And Cruising says, because Boston was known for its historically large population of African slaves. Yeah, no kidding. I sense some sarcasm there. JD says if Archie Bunker was on the air, he'd call Kamala something else. Yeah. And Kami Thong says, shout out to the meathead Rob Reiner. And All People says this is bullcrap. The majority of blacks and whites and others in America are from post-slavery era families. The slave descendant blacks do not support reparations. Yeah, that's why we did the video on it. I'm hesitant to put it up almost because of the rant my wife went on about the concept of reparations and some things that have been said to me about it recently on account of my comments and commentary on the podcast. Dragon says this is a form of slavery itself, as this is not voluntary if it passes. True. Making people pay for something that they had no part in is much like stealing from people. Unknown says if they didn't get reparations under Obama, yeah. Nature Nerd says Ethiopia recognizes Somaliland as a country in exchange for seaport access for both economy and exports. And Helter said, forcing taxpayers to pay non-victims for something that happened to neither group is not reparations. Yeah, it's a big can of worms. It makes a lot of people upset. Puck says those aren't pastors, they're poverty pimps. I've heard that term, and I know where you're coming from with that. The whole poverty pimps bit. Yeah. Victimhood champions is what that is. As they push on and on, and I don't know what that sash is supposed to represent. That this minister, it says Reverend John Gibbons. What does that sash mean, and does it have anything to do with the actual Bible, or are you displaying something else? Are you making some other display here that's not biblical? I think about that when I see these ministers and reverends from these churches that champion the alphabet mafia, and they have the rainbow sash, and I'm like, are you championing what's in the Bible, or are you putting your socio-political views on sexuality at the forefront and making that more important than what you claim to be talking about? Because you're showcasing sexual preference and desire above biblical teaching by doing that. And look at these people around. Look at the smug look on these people's faces, actually, in this close-up of the photo, for those of you who can see. I tried to expand it. There we go. Look at the looks of these people's faces. You can't tell them anything. There's no reasoning with people like that. I believe that. I think that very often you wear your personality on your face. And you can tell a lot of times when you look at someone if you can even talk to and or reason with that individual. And Talk with Tiffany said pride is a sin. Yeah. Yes, it is. If you put that at the forefront of everything else, yes. Which is the irony of calling it the pride movement. Puck says Trump is being fined $454 million for a victimless crime. Why not reparations too? Yeah. He shouldn't have been charged with that in the first place. I've talked about that. Exaggerating the value of a property. Everyone does that. Every real estate agency does that. Every business does that. You say this house is worth $100,000. I'm trying to sell it. The buyer has their guys look at it. Oh, well, they say it's worth 75. I'll give you 70. You say I'll take 95. You haggle. You get the idea. Even the county exaggerates the value of a property if they can get away with it so they can tax you more. That wasn't a crime. It wasn't a crime. As we shift around here, this is an article that I came across that I thought was interesting, and I just wanted to stomp it into the ground as sarcastically as possible because it's offensive. It's offensive and it's stupid. And this is the kind of crap that leads people down the wrong path. And this is a Telegraph article. So you know it's true. Telegraph article. And it says motherhood is a trap. Marriage is a bad deal. And feminist Corinne Meyer on learning to be selfish. And this is Corinne. And again, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at her face. Trying to get that to expand. What a smug, distant person. She doesn't look kind or reasonable at all. She looks miserable. Just, in trying to read people, when you can look at people and you can pick up on things. This is not a happy person. And she's going to spread that misery because misery loves company. And she's going to try to spread it in this article. Listen to this woman. It's never too late to learn how to be selfish, says Connie Meyer, grave-faced behind her heavy-rimmed spectacles. Sadly, women aren't born that way, so it does have to be learned. But if we can forget about the superwoman we've been bullied into thinking we have to be at home with the husband and the kids and release our inner slacker woman, we would be happier. Happiness cannot be achieved without selfishness, but that is achievable for every woman. You too can be selfish, says Meyer. Wow, I'm just going to tear this to shreds. Because first of all, it's never too late to learn how to be selfish. You don't have to learn how to be selfish. You have to learn how to not to be selfish. We're born selfish. Kicking and screaming and fussing, born selfish and frightened and angry. And being noisy and loud, obnoxious, and selfish is how you communicate when you're an infant and a toddler because you don't know any other way to do it. And you learn to move away from that and hopefully mature out of it if you're being raised properly or if you learn differently. Even if you learn on your own, you learn to move away from that, from not being so selfish. She's sitting there and saying that motherhood is a trap, marriage is a bad deal. There are many women who are married, who are mothers, who love it. They are happy with that. How dare you tell them they're not happy because you're not? I bet you she's never been married, and I bet you she has no children. I wouldn't be surprised to find out at all. And that we've been told that we're super women. We've been bullied into thinking we have to be. No, feminists have bullied you into thinking that you're supposed to be super women. Okay? Feminists bullied you into that. You're not only as good as a man, you're better than one, and you don't need one at all. That's a feminist mentality. Release our inner slacker woman. We would be happier. You would be happier by not giving a shit about anyone else, never having a companion, never continuing your lineage by having a child, sharing that experience, creating a little you to mold and shape and maybe make a better person than you are? Really? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But this is the modern mentality. Screw everybody else. There's a lot of people that are very happy helping others and thinking of others ahead of themselves. Caring about other people, sharing. If you're in an honest relationship, a loving relationship, you don't think of yourself ahead of your partner. And that's what makes it work if it's working well. I'll always put my wife ahead of me, and she tries to put me ahead of her. and it balances out. And we're very happy with each other. We're very happy with each other. I'd probably be a miserable prick if I was alone. Fluke Man, getting back to a previous comment here, says, wasn't Ethiopia, they got their reparations by kicking out white farmers, given the land to blacks, but they didn't know how to farm and it crashed the economy? That sounds familiar, actually. I know that their economy was destroyed, but that does sound familiar. Kami says the rainbow as a symbol being abandoned and perverted by people who proclaim to love their creator is a disgrace. The Ark of the Covenant is not a lost object. It's something that is within you if you honor it. And All People says Gul Karakom. It's the real name of the reparations movement that was imported to the US and UK by black migrants. Sven says, I'm late. What did I miss? A lot. A lot, but it's okay. And All People says, Corey Meyer looks like a dude. Yeah, she does have some mannish qualities. She's miserable. She's never had a solid relationship because she's probably always looked down on herself for being very plain in appearance. But you can be very plain and people would still be attracted to you if you're a very kind, very pleasant person. You know, you don't have to be a supermodel for somebody to love you unless you don't hold yourself to a high standard. Fluke Man says if Trump pays the fine, it'll open a huge door for left wing to be even more confident and cocky. And Puck says, yikes, my eyes. Yeah, that's terrible. Cruising said that's the face of a child who pulled the wings off flies. And Nature said she hasn't seen the sun in months. Oh, you're all picking on her. Unknown says every so often some feminist writes a diatribe about how much they regret having a family. And I doubt she even has one. Kami says it's Ma'am Margira, and this is called psyoping your handler. Okay. As I shift through here, a lot of insults for the woman. But that's why she's so selfish, because you're cruel and mean. She dyes her hair too. That's obviously dyed. I wonder how old she is. She looks like she's in her 60s to me. I don't know, but her hair doesn't match. So it's obviously dyed, in my opinion. But that's unfortunate. And people are going to be inspired by that. People are going to be inspired by that. They're going to look at that and they're going to say, yeah, I've got to learn to be selfish. I've got to learn to be selfish and just look after me and take care of me. Look what that's done to society. I don't agree with being forced to help people. That if you don't want to, the hell with them. You shouldn't be forced. But if it falls on you, that's something else. And there are people who enjoy that, who like helping people. You want to rob them of it. As we see more speculation here about her. Oh, and All People, by the way, the GoFundMe, I did make one at your behest, as it were. I know that you and a few other people asked if I would put up a GoFundMe about the operating expenses of the podcast, and that is up and running. As we shift gears here, this is something I thought was interesting. I couldn't resist showing this video clip. I'm going to try to expand this. I'm going to try to expand this and play this for you. For those of you who can see, this is a checkpoint where they're emptying out a car full of migrants. All People says cool is the link at your videos. Actually, the link is at the very beginning of this discussion, and there is a video up with the link in it. And I can try to pull that link again and throw it here so that you can see. I'll try to do that really quickly here before I play this video clip that I have set up. and it's a car trying to cross a border, and it's loaded for bear. It's a clown car. It makes no freaking sense how full this car is. It makes no sense at all. It looks like there's 100 people in this sedan. Let me grab that link for you, and I'll post it, and then I'll play the video, and then I'll rescue Miss Kitty because I can hear her crying, and so she's upset. There's the link. And now I'll set up the video, and I'll let poor Miss Kitty in the door because I can hear her. She's ready to go. as we shift around, hopefully this won't flub because you know how they are with transfers. Okay, this is a checkpoint. And you see he's got the car doors open, and they're like, all right, we need everybody to get out of this car. And there's Max, and Max says, love the discussion, watching from work. I'm glad you're getting something out of it, Max. That's why we do it. Are you ready for this? This is going to knock your socks off. I'll turn the audio back on. Watch what happens. For those of you who can see, and I'll explain here in a minute. See if you can keep count of how many people are in this sedan.
Cuéntalo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9.
Look at how they're packed. Is that like 8, 9? That suspension must have been scraping the floor. Come on, guys, look at this. 10, 11. Watch this. Look at the trunk. 12. It's got a stink in there, huh? The craziest thing I've seen in a long time. 13, 14, 15. They must be going to the drive-in. Incredible. I've lost count. Look, they even sagged their pants. Can you imagine if that car was in an accident? And they got backpacks in there too. They got their bags. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, there we go. There you go. Chris says clown car. Rodney says clown car. Yeah, it's like a clown car. Hey, no circus ever did it like that. That's incredible. Max says that's pitiful. Must have had them stacked up like Jenga blocks. Unknown says, how did they not die of heat exhaustion? No kidding. Can you imagine? And Chris says, I just tuned in. Is this in Haiti? I'm not sure exactly where it is. I'm not sure exactly where that is. I believe they were speaking Spanish, but they were trying to get across a border checkpoint. They didn't make it. They didn't make it. Somebody must have noticed their suspension was too low. And Puck says, did you see the video of the migrant walking down the street in California eating a human leg? No, I did not see that. I did not see that. And yeah, like I said, and unknown, yeah, drive-in, exactly. They're going to the drive-in. It's just the two of us, I swear. There's no one in the trunk. Cruising says, imagine how many they could fit in a Lincoln Town car. And Monkey says, from the looks of it, Haitians trying to cross into the Dominican Republic, and that could be because they're sealing their borders off. They don't want anybody from Haiti going in there unless they kidnap them, because that's been a problem ongoing between those two countries for a long time. They kidnap each other and force them into slave labor and like sugar plantations. Nature Nerd says they should have been arrested for no seatbelts. And Zane is here today. And Zane wants to know if anyone saw the French deploying in the Ukraine. I have not heard that. I have not heard that. And Flukeman says they remember seeing something about how many people you could fit into a mini back in the 80s. It was just for fun, though. No, these people aren't fooling around. They're trying to cross the border. They would have been better off getting out somewhere down the road and trying to jump through the jungle. Monkey says it's at the Haitian-Dominican Republic border since the flag. Okay, you saw a flag on there? Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I thought I would share that because that is hilarious. Now, here's something else to consider. Here's something else to consider. This is important, which means it's going to be overlooked. And this is a Register article. This is from the Register, I believe. Wait for that to pop up here really quickly. And there it is. The Register, truck-to-truck worm could infect and disrupt the entire U.S. commercial fleet. And basically, anybody an over-the-road driver, you know exactly what I'm talking about here in this article. Getting into the article, the device that makes it possible is required in all American big rigs and has poor security. Vulnerabilities in common electronic logging devices, or ELDs, required in U.S. commercial trucks could be present in over 14 million medium and heavy-duty rigs, according to Boffins at Colorado State University. In a paper presented at the 24 Network and Distributed Systems Security Symposium, Associate Professor, hold still, damn articles, Associate Professor Jeremy Daly and Systems Engineering graduate students Jake Jepson and Rick Charton-G demonstrated that ELDs can be accessed over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connections to take control of a truck, manipulate its data, and spread malware between the vehicles. These findings highlight an urgent need to improve the security posture in ELD systems. The authors did not specify the brands or models of ELDs that are vulnerable to the security flaws. Goodness. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. That they were highlighted in the paper, but they do note that there's not too much diversity of products on the market. While there are some 880 devices registered, only a few tens of distinct models have hit the road in commercial trucks. A federal mandate requires most heavy-duty trucks to be equipped with an ELD, which track driving hours. These systems also log data on engine operation, vehicle movement, and distances driven, but they aren't required to have tested safety controls built in. And according to the research, they can be wirelessly manipulated by another car on the road, for example, and force the truck to pull over. And that's important to consider. So essentially, a system that's in the truck that's required by federal law to be in all over-the-road rigs so that they can track you. They can track where the truck is. They can track your speed, so on and so forth. And so that they can track you through checkpoints. And that used to drive, when my wife was an over-the-road driver some years back, and I'd go with her. Now, you slip an inch over the speed limit, and that thing goes nuts. You are over the speed limit. Warning, you are over the speed limit. Shut up. But and if it goes on for too long, you'll get it'll change to a different kind of alert, and then you'll have problems. So they require this in all trucks, but apparently they're not safe according to the study, and they can be easily broken into through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. And so in theory, someone could quickly spread a virus through the entire network by latching onto one truck, or cripple the entire network. They could literally shut down all the trucks in North America if somebody wanted to break into this system. Chris says that electronic logs ruined the trucking. And Zane says automatic shutoff switches are coming soon. And Puck says improved security. How about not using the crap to start with? Yeah, exactly. You know, we were in a store the other day, and they were shut down because they couldn't swipe. Something went wrong with the register that the card wouldn't work at that register, and then all of them had that problem suddenly. It was 4 registers. It was a Goodwill. 4 registers. None of them would work because the card reader, there was some kind of glitch. Essentially, by being so heavily reliant on the electronics, you've created systems that can be very easily crippled, that are extremely vulnerable. Or as Tom Baker put it, the more advanced the system is, the more vulnerable it is to a primitive form of attack. Quote, Doctor Who. Raccoon says, I just saw the video of the man eating the human leg he stole from a train accident. Really? So that, yeah, I had not heard that. I had not heard that. Puck says, feds want to track commercial trucks. Illegal immigrants, not so much. Yeah. Fluke Man says, if the trucks for Trump boycott could cause New York serious problems, exaggerated. That was a few weeks ago, but I haven't heard New York going bankrupt. I don't know what happened to that. They went down to the border, right? Is that the group that went to the border and then you didn't hear anything about it afterwards? Just kind of petered out, which doesn't surprise me at all. It's actually what I predicted on the podcast, that it wasn't, I was like, if it hangs on, I'll be surprised. Nature Nerd says, much safer to have cars not connected to the internet to be immune from attacks that can spread. Rodney says, more spy devices mandated by the federal government. And Zane's got to go. That's okay, Zane. Glad you could stop in. I don't like all that anyways. And that's just there. It's really there so they can tax the truckers to death. Because, they have, if you've driven a rig or you drive a rig, I know there's a couple of people in here that they listen to the podcast and they're driving. And the rules and regulations that they have on a lot of that, stupid things like if you're missing the caps on your tires, it's $25 a cap fine if you get pulled over, and just all sorts of things. And not that you're going to lose any air from your tire, or all those checkpoints that you got to drive through that weighs your truck and scans your truck and copies its data from these devices and everything. It's just ways for them to tax and regulate the shit out of everything, making over-the-road driving miserable for truckers. Truckers got crushed. It used to be a big thing in this country during the whole CB era, Citizen Band, when everybody was on the CB radio, and there was TV shows and movies about it because that was a big movement. It was a whole freedom aspect of it, and it has been regulated into the ground. It's been crushed. She had to have permits to have me in the truck with her, because you're not allowed to have anyone else in the truck with you unless they're certified. So she had to have, for insurance purposes, I could be permitted to be in the truck as her spouse with the correct certification, but she can't pick anybody up. She can't have anyone else in the truck, so on and so forth. She drove for Werner. Just like how motorcycle gangs were all crushed. They have to be motorcycle clubs now. They're MCs because they've got to register themselves to stay off of the FBI's watch list, or else they could be considered gangs or terrorist organizations. So the freedom of being in a cycle club, if you will, has been crushed by the federal government. Anything that you think you're free, they'll crush it. Flukeman says, does anyone miss the 80s or the 90s? Yeah, 80s was the greatest decade. Because remember, I grew up half in the 80s, half in the 70s, and half in the 80s. And so I totally feel you on that. Things were a hell of a lot better. Things were a hell of a lot better as we shift around here. And we're going to go to Washington, D.C. in a minute. And all people's talking about them, Dominican Republic putting up a border wall. Everybody wants to put up a wall except for us. Everybody wants to put up a wall except for us. Nature Nerd says we became as free as Britain in recent decades. Yeah. They want to put a wall around you specifically. They want to put you in a 15-minute city and put a gate up and then give you a pass with like a hole puncher for how many times you can go out of the community, just like in feudal Europe, where you didn't leave the grounds without the Lord's permission if you lived on that property. And you could be rounded up by the sheriff and brought back if you did. How dare you? How dare you go somewhere without my permission? I'm going to have to slice your nostril open now. That was a practice. That's where the term paying through the nose comes from. They'd stick a dagger up your nose and snap it open. That was a thing. Oh my God. We're getting to that. We're getting to that, folks. We're getting to that level, unfortunately, in government. Ooh, she looks like a beast. All right. Fox News article coming up, taking place in Washington, D.C. Excuse me, Washington, D.C. So what do they have to say? Let's see if this comes up nice and clean. Come on, Restream. There it is. White House OMB director repeats misleading claims that Biden created 15 million new jobs. That's right. And there she is. That's the so-called OMB director. Another diversity hire, I imagine. Office of Management and Budget. Naturally, that's what OMB is. Director Shalandra Young. Shalandra Ramadingdong repeated a common refrain from the Biden administration that multiple fact checkers have labeled as misleading or lacking content or context. Young said that during Thursday's hearing on the administration of a $7.3 trillion budget that President Biden added 15 million jobs and that unemployment has been at a 50-year historic low for the last 2 years. If that's true, why do we need so many migrants to fill job positions? Just asking for a friend. Quote, I get why people don't want to give the president credit for 15 million jobs added for unemployment being at a 50-year historic low. I get the grandstanding, Young said during questioning by Representative Bob Good. But if you wanted to do something about the border, there was a bill right in front of Congress. What's that got to do with it? Why mention that? But we choose to come into rooms like this and talk about the budget in question, she continued. Well, you should talk about the budget. It's out of control. Though around 15 million jobs have been created since Biden took office, according to several fact-checking media outlets, taking credit for that record is not clear-cut. Snopes reported on Thursday Biden's claim is a mixture of true and false. It's called equivocation. It's what politicians do. Everybody knows that. According to the fact-checking outlet, early data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found the number of employed individuals increasing from 142.9 million in January 21 when Biden assumed office to 157.8 million in February, marking a surge of 14.9 million jobs. However, the outlet said that the apparent growth can be misleading without considering the broader context. Prior to the C virus pandemic onset in the U.S., employment figures stood at 152.3 million in 2020. And the subsequent 2 months, however, the number plummeted by 21.9 million to 130.4. All right. So what's being suggested here is that during the pandemic, when the C virus was being crammed down our throats and they had the mask mandates and social distancing, and they closed all the stores and they closed all the schools, and multitudes of people got laid off, that 21.9 million people lost their jobs. So to sit there and brag that 14.9 million, because that's what's here, 14.9 million jobs have been added according to this. They're claiming 15. It's 14.9 million. Close enough, I guess, if you're going to round it up. All right. Is a difference of 7 million jobs. So you forced 21.9 million people to go on unemployment. You recovered 14.9 million of those jobs. That means that 7 million people are still not working. So you lost 7 million jobs. You didn't gain 15 million. That's what happened. JD says it's all a little late for a wall. We have already been invaded. Yeah, I know. We got to throw them all out. Then we'll put the wall up. Raccoon says, got to catch them first. Rodney says, how do you know a Biden administration official is lying? Their lips are moving. Yeah, there you go. There you go. JD says, just imagine about all those minimum wage part-time McJobs. And Puck says, I remember we couldn't drink a beer at a brewery unless they served Hot Pockets or hot dogs. Apparently since concluded that either repelled the C virus. Yeah, they shut the country down, and nobody fought back. Nobody. And anyone who did resist was labeled a heretic by the system. Oh, you're trying to kill us. You don't want to take the jab. You don't want to wear a mask. You're trying to kill us all. We're just trying to be safe. Too many people went along with it, many of which regret it now. But it's too late. The damage has been done. And all that did was show the governments of the world, because many countries did this, especially in the West, that they could get away with hemming up their entire country, essentially shutting it down. That's what they demonstrated to the world. We can shut the entire country down, and there's nothing that you're going to do about it because you're cowards. Sven says, if your salary comes from taxes, you are likely lying. And Nature Nerd says, I see more old people working than young people working right now. That's because older people have a better work ethic. These younger people don't want a job. They want a handout. They've been convinced that they're entitled to a handout, and that's what they want. They want to make a fortune for doing next to nothing. But I know if I was going to hire somebody, I would want to hire somebody who's older and more experienced, because they're more likely to do the job. Whether they like it or not, they'll at least do the job. They probably won't even complain about it because they know they agreed to it. But that's why that's a false claim. First of all, it's not 15 million. It's less than 15 million. Although it's close enough. It's close enough. Fair enough. But there's a 7 million job discrepancy because you lost 21.9. You gained 14.9 back, but there's still 7 million in the hole. So what are you going to do? Brian says younger people come looking for work, then complain they want to go home. And Rodney says, over here, if you dared complain about the C virus mandates, you lost your job and were publicly vilified. No kidding. I know. It's a damn shame. But with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live, and at Prepper University on YouTube, broadcasting live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as fistfulofradio.com, where you can find me Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And on X, formerly known as Twitter, it's at Coffee Talk Chat. Again, at the behest of some of the people who view the channel, there is a GoFundMe set up. It is in the comments section, and I believe it's in the description. I think I put it in the description, but there is a video of it up on both channels. Thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. Special shout out to Rodney, who made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Rodney. And again, I hope everybody who joined us today got something out of the conversation.